Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and today I'm making a very silly birthday card. This is totally my type of humor. I've said in other videos, I have the sense of humor of like a 10-year-old. So this is the Whimsy Old Fart stamp set, and I have some Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound cardstock in my stamp platform here, and I have arranged the images on the cardstock, and I am going to stamp them with Ink on 3's Blackout ink, and going to stamp them a couple times because these are brand new stamps. They haven't been inked up yet, so they need a little bit of seasoning sometimes, and that's why I absolutely love stamping platforms, whether it be this Tonic stamp platform or the Misty, whatever floats your boat. Love. So after I stamped everything, I am using kind of just my go-to skin combo with Copic Markers for her skin, which is just E50, E21, E13. I'm going to go in with R20, and I add a tiny little bit of BG10 to her eyes, just the littlest bit. So added a bit of that, I go in, add that R20 for her cheeks, blend that out with the E50. And then for her hair and the walker, very simple, just cool grays. So I started with my C4, then I'm going to go in and blend that out a bit with C2, and then I finally go in and use my C00. And I'm keeping the coloring really simple, and I'm only coloring parts of this image because I am going to go old school and do a bit of paper piecing. This is more in the style of cards like I used to make back in the day, kind of switch back and forth every once in a while. But as I was looking at this image, I was like, she would look really cute in like a patterned skirt and like a little patterned cardigan. So I did all my main coloring first, and after I got I'm gonna do her shirt, and then I decided just to color that little frilly bottom part of her skirt just to give it some color. I didn't want to paper piece that. I like keeping things as simple as possible. So just using bright pinks and whatnot, and I'm pulling colors from the pack of pattern papers I'm planning on using for like her shoes and her shirt and whatnot. So did that, added the little pink to the little frill there of her skirt, added a little bit of gray for the shading, and then I'm using warm grays for the actual shading for the little farts. I can't even keep a straight face with this. This is just, I love it. This stamp set is hilarious, and the sentiments with it just crack me up, which I use all of them in the end. So anyway, using warm grays for all of this, fading it all out, starting from W5, then I do W3, W1, W00. So like I said, I wanted a patterned skirt, so I'm using the Doodlebug Hello 6x6 pack. I did a huge haul video months ago, when I showed all this off. I've been hoarding it all these months. I have no problem hoarding all my pattern paper. It makes me happy. But I decided to use some of it because I thought the colors and the patterns would look really cute for this card. Plus I really like this foiled striped, and I was like, ooh, a foiled like cardigan. How awesome would that be? Like metallic. So stamped both of those, just the portions of those stamps. On this foil piece, I used my heat tool just in case because I am stamping over foil, and foil likes to kind of resist things, and just wanted to make sure this ink was dry before I start cutting because I didn't want to smear anything. So I just blasted it with my heat tool for a few seconds and it was fine. So now I'm getting into the fussy cutting, and I did speed this up during the editing. I work a little bit slower to make sure that I cut precisely, and you can see I hold my scissors in the same place. It's the paper that I move more than anything. I find that's just the easiest way to get a smooth cut, and I cut like right up to the line. I don't worry though if I don't get it 100% perfect, because that's when I go around the edges with a marker. But I trimmed it all out. With our cardigan, I just did it in 2 pieces. I found that would be easier to cut and then easier to adhere rather than doing it all as one, even because they're kind of connected there. Her skirt was super easy, very simple cutting. So just went around, trimmed everything out, and then once it's all trimmed, this is where I take my Memento TUXEDO black marker. This is the only thing I use this marker for. I've had it for years and years and years, and I keep it on my desk, and then those rare times when I do fussy cutting, it's perfect for that. And I just run the edge of the marker along the very edge of the paper, and it just coats that exposed white edge. So if I didn't cut perfectly, or any spots where you can see that edge of the paper, it covers it up with the black, kind of melds it with the stamped black part, and it makes it look a lot more seamless. So went along and did that with all 3 little tiny pieces here. And then once those are all coated, to adhere them in place, I'm just going to use some multimedia matte adhesive because it has the super fine. I have the super fine tip applicator on it. So I can do tiny little dabs of that. And if any does happen to ooze out, you're not really going to see it. So I just put dabs of that down, and then I can start adhering all my little paper pieced bits here to kind of finish off this image. And it's not 100% done. Paper piecing is great, but I like, especially if I've done Copic coloring, which I pretty much always do when I'm doing paper piecing like this. I like to add some shading and whatnot to those pattern paper pieces with my Copics. It just helps everything kind of meld together more and make things look more seamless and like they're not just like floating there. So I use the warm gray markers for this as well. I avoided the foiled areas because I discovered immediately that even with Copic markers, even though they're alcohol based, it doesn't really go over the foil. Like the foil pretty much resists almost everything, which is fine. So I just added the shading to the open areas of her little cardigan there and to the skirt. And now you can see how it makes everything just work. I love it. This image and this set are funny and they're just, anyway. Die cut more pattern paper with various dies. I used the MFT Circle STAX Set 2 for the main image. And then I used one of their mini scallop circle dies on the floral pattern paper to frame that. And then I used one of the stitched rectangle stacks dies for the big pink piece of pattern paper. And then I pulled out the balloon numbers Die-Namics and I die cut a whole bunch of balloons from the pattern papers with the solid balloon image. Die cut a bunch of those, and then I die cut the 6 balloon from more Copic 80-pound or Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound cardstock because I want to color these in with my Copics as I'm showing here. So I die cut the 6 and the 0 because this whole card is actually for my mother's birthday, which it's embarrassing to admit I totally forgot. I didn't forget it was her birthday. I forgot what day it was. Not the day of her birthday, what day it actually was in this month. Totally spaced, wasn't paying attention. I've just been frazzled and stressed out. And then my brother texted me and he's like, you do realize like yesterday was Mom's birthday. I was like, oh no. So I'm making this card for her because I had a rough idea in the back of my head anyway. I just for some reason thought her birthday was like next week. I don't know. I was lost. So I am late with this. So it all kind of worked. Not just with this theme, but the stamp I'm going to use on the inside. I like to make humorous cards a lot of times for my mom. She's kind of got a similar sense of humor. So, and I like to tease her sometimes about how old she is, even though she's not that old and she doesn't look her age. I'm not just saying this. She doesn't see my videos, so she's not going to see like any of this. She doesn't look her age. No one would believe she's 60. Even my kids, they're like, really? Grandma's not that old. She's only 50. So yeah, she does not look her age. So this is just, I'm totally tongue in cheek with this entire thing, and which makes it even funnier, really. So I finished coloring. I'm like going off on a whole total tangent here. Finished coloring those balloons, added some highlights with my white gel pen, and then I wrapped black thread around the balloons, and I'm just using washi tape to hold it in place. And then once I have the thread where I want it, I just use dabs of the multimedia matte, just so that the thread is like coming down from the center of the balloon. And then I just set these upside down to completely dry, which doesn't take long. So I did all those balloons with the thread and the multimedia matte. And then I die cut a reverse mask with one of the MFT, or Simon Says Stamp nested talk bubbles wafer dies. That way I could line up the stamps from the set and make sure that they would fit within that so I can die cut them with that talk bubble. So once I was sure that those would all fit, I got them on my acrylic block. I'm going to stamp these onto that black cardstock with Ink on 3's Juicy Embossing Ink. And then I started with Simon's Detail White embossing powder, which I use on just about everything. And it's fine with larger sentiments, but when I heat emboss all the other sentiments in the set, because they're so tiny, I switch to Ranger's super fine detail embossing powder, which is I only use that emboss powder for when I want super detailed, really tiny, tiny little sentiments. So I did all that off camera because I was just all over the place making this card. This literally took me a good couple days just with everything going on. So anyway, took a full sheet of white cardstock. I cut it in half, so they're 5.5 by 8.5. And then this one piece, I just trimmed off just a little bit, like less than 1/8 of an inch off of the end. It just makes the folds, like it fold together a little better so nothing's catching. And then I'm scoring them both in half at 4 1/4 inches. So it'll be an A2 size card, 4¼ by 5½. And the one with the just slightly shorter side, that will be the right-hand fold. So I'm going to adhere these cards together to create the trifold. So I'll have the front, the inner fold, and then the inside of the card. So I'm just going to use my Xyron Mega Runner to adhere these together using a generous amount of adhesive, running that along the back of the main portion of the card. And then I also add a little bit to the outer edge of this second card here, the one with the shorter little bit. So that short bit is on the very far right. So I'm going to adhere these together, just lining them up. And then I've got my trifold card. Simple, easy peasy. And yet the funny thing is, I think this is the first time in my life I've ever made one. And I've been making cards for 15 plus years. So after I got my card base, it's now time to start assembling everything. So I'm going to adhere this pattern paper panel to the card front, and then I'm going to adhere my scalloped circle pattern paper panel, and then I'm going to adhere the main image. I was debating about like popping things up with foam tape and everything else, but I have so much going on with this card and so much adhering to do that I decided it was actually easier to just adhere everything down like flat. So I've got my main images, and then to start adhering all these balloons, I'm just going to use some 1/2" score tape because it's faster and easier with all this adhering. It adheres it down immediately, and it's super, super strong. Because I didn't want to fiddle with liquid adhesive because I'm going to be pulling on these strings and everything else. So this was literally the quickest option. So with this cluster of balloons, with the 60, I adhered those into place. And then I grab all 3 of those strings, and then I'm going to carefully tie a knot in these. And I purposely kind of held it and like guided the knot as I'm pulling it tight so that it comes right down to where the walker is there. I had thought about like piercing a hole in the main image and running like, you know, literally wrapping it around by piercing holes and running it through and all this stuff. And I was like, nope. Tie a knot, use a dab of the multimedia matte adhesive, let that dry. It looks like it's tied to the walker. Cute, done. And then the other cluster of balloons, I just kind of peeled up the pattern paper there and tucked the strings, like tied them and then tucked them under the edge and left it at that because I just didn't want them like hanging there. So after that multimedia matte dried on that knot of the first one there, trimmed off the ends, and it's good to go. So like I said, I stamped and heat embossed every single sentiment from this stamp set because I couldn't decide which one to use. And that's why I decided to do the trifold card, because I thought it'd be hilarious to open the card and then there'll be this inner panel with all these sentiments on it. I thought it was just funny because it's like, you know, your old when happy hour is a nap. You can laugh, sneeze, and toot all at the same time. You wake up hungover, but you weren't drunk the night before. An all-nighter is not getting up to pee. You see your old furniture in an antique shop. Getting lucky means finding your car in the parking lot. Your favorite kinds of plans are cancel plans. And then at the bottom I put, you're complaining that this print is too small. So I heat embossed all those, like I said, with that Ranger super fine embossing powder. And so then on this inner panel, I had the remaining balloons. I adhered those into place with the score tape. And then the ends of the strings, I just pulled down and put dabs of that multimedia matte adhesive right at the very end. And I'm actually using my embossing powder containers to hold those strings in place. So that, again, once that's dry, they're not going anywhere. And then to adhere all these sentiments, I'm just using some liquid adhesive because I'm just going to kind of scatter them along. And I missed one of them. I found it on the mess at my desk when I was cleaning up after making this card. So you'll see it in the finished image on my blog. And I was able to just kind of squeeze it in there right above the one I just adhered. So I adhered all of these fun little goofy sentiments on the inside of this first panel. And then to complete the card, and because I was late in remembering the birthday and getting this sent to my mom, I pulled out this tulips sentiment. I get a kick out of the tulip sets. I used one in another video that I'll link at the end of this one, and I've shown them in hauls. I collect them. I don't get a chance to use them very often, but this one was perfect because it says, in another part of the world, it's customary to send birthday wishes after the person's birthday. Not sure where, but apparently I'm from there, which is a little more ironic because it's going to my mom. But anyway, and then happy belated birthday. So I stamped that using my full-size stamp platform because I needed something big enough to fit this whole card base into. I don't use the full-size platform or my full-size Misty very often. People ask me if I still like them. I do. I love them. They're just so big that I only pull them out when I need them because my desk surface area is usually so full that I just don't have space for them. So they're still awesome. I just use them when I need them. So as a final bit of embellishment, I also pulled out some of my very much hoarded Doodlebug shape sprinkles. Since this was going to my mom, I was able to like pull some of these off the sheet and stick them to a card. Move them around a little bit because I wasn't really happy with how they were looking. And then, you know, stuck a couple more on because I thought I could be a little generous. And that ended up finishing off the card. And then to make the envelope kind of cute too, I pulled out a pale pink envelope and stamped the main image again with picked raspberry distress oxide ink. I just love that pink on pink. So that officially finished off this card. So as always, I'll have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have links to all of the supplies used. So you can check that out below if you are interested in any of that. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.